How's it going, everyone? College Lefty, and in this video I ranked the best cards in MLB The Show 23, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Now in this video I am going to be ranking these players a little bit different just based on previous videos. We don't necessarily have a top 10 or a top 5. I believe Nolan Ryan is within the top 10 somewhere, and depending on your opponent could be, one of the best pitchers in the game, but overall I think he's right around the number 6 spot. For Justin Verlander, I think he is a top 5 pitcher in Diamond Dynasty, and there's also a few other pitchers that aren't on the list, like Yu Darvish, maybe Bob Gibson. Shohei Ohtani could definitely be the number 1 starting pitcher and relief pitcher in MLB The Show. He does have some type of stamina glitch. He's pretty much ready to use every single game, especially if you have him on the bench or as a DH if you want to use him as a pitcher as well. At number 3, we have Pedro Martinez. I think this card is still really, really good, and I think there could be a couple better pitchers, but I just picked him up, and I'm excited to use him for the very first time. I still think Roki Sasaki is probably a little bit better in terms of just a pitcher, right? Just an all-around starting pitcher. He is a little bit better than Shohei, more effective than Pedro, but not necessarily as good as the big unit Randy Johnson. I believe Randy is overall the most dominant starting pitcher in MLB The Show 23, and I think he will be for probably right around 100-something days. He's going to be pretty lethal, even as a wild card pitcher later on in the year. Now, as we get into the top closing pitchers and top relief pitchers in the game, you could certainly argue that Trevor Hoffman could definitely be on this list just because of his captain boost, as well as maybe a couple other guys. But Josh Hader, I think, is at number 6. We have Mariano Rivera at number 5. Can't go wrong with either of those guys, right? If you need a lefty, maybe Josh Hader is a cheaper option than maybe somebody else on this list, but Mariano Rivera should also be a cheaper option as the Season 2 kind of goes on. Rich Gossage, Goose Gossage at number 4. This is just personal preference. I think he is a little bit more effective than Mariano Rivera with outlier and having that slurve, the good speed differential with a sinker. But if you prefer a 5-pitch repertoire, you might go with Rivera. I think Kenley Jansen could be better than both of those other guys just because of the hits and K per 9 as well as the 5-pitch mix. He has the slower slider with a circle changeup, and Eric Gagne to me is a little bit better just based on the speed differential. It just depends on your opponent, of course, with pitching. Pitching really hasn't won me any games this year, but I think Aroldis Chapman is the most dominant closing pitcher on the list. To me, just the average player has a really tough time hitting this card, and if you can't hit him, then he could pitch for a couple of innings even with the lower stamina. Now we get into the catchers. I think the number 4 catcher in the game right now is Mike Napoli. I could also put in, maybe Francisco Alvarez at number 5 and then Napoli at number 4. I decided to just go with the top 4 catchers list here. At number 3, we have JT Realmuto. A lot of people might have this guy ranked as their best catcher. I would prefer maybe 2 other guys ahead of him, and one of those is Kensuke Kondo. If this card was a primary catcher, I think he would be at a 99 overall, and I have him paralleled up to a 99 anyway. But to me, he's one of the most complete catchers in Diamond Dynasty and will be for a really long time. Even as a potential wild card player, I don't think a lot of people will use him as a wild card because there's just so many better options. But I think, there are that many great catchers in the game right now, and some people with more of a budget team could, because he is a free option. But Jorge Posada is really the only other catcher that I would probably use over Kensuke Kondo just personally. But as we get into first baseman, I really think there are only 2 guys that I would want to use, and one of them I already have. Stan Musial is the guy I do not have, but if I were to pick maybe a replacement for Babe Ruth, it would be Stan Musial, right? This top players at these positions is really only going to be valid for about 45, 47 days. There's going to be other cards released for set 2, and they could overtake some of these guys. I think as we get into second baseman, Brandon Crawford is definitely a card that I would consider using. At second base, he's maybe a little bit too slow, depending on what you like. But as set 1 players are no longer available, that Brandon Crawford card is someone that, as of right now, I would be looking to use at either second, shortstop, or third base. But Trey Turner to me is a little bit better. I like the card a little bit more. But my number one second baseman is Francisco Lindor. I really think this card is best played at second base, just based on if you have Trey Turner and Lindor, you want to get the best reaction out of those players. And Trey Turner at short, Lindor at second is the best combination. But Brandon Crawford, to me, is the number 4 shortstop. I would consider using him there, but once again, he's a little bit slow. At number 3, we have Derek Jeter. To me, there are a couple better shortstops on the list, and then one guy I didn't even put on the list because I think he's without a doubt the best player at his respective position. But Fernando Tatis is one guy I would consider using over Derek Jeter, and I don't even have Derek Jeter. I'm looking to get him eventually. I'm trying to flip the market and collect some of those live series teams, unlock Derek Jeter and Sammy Sosa. We'll talk a little bit about him a little later. Trey Turner at number 1 for the best shortstop in the entire game. There is, of course, Chipper Jones. You can put at shortstop, I think, with the video game Captain Boost. Chipper Jones has 94 fielding at short and 99 fielding at third. Trey Turner to me is the best just based on not having a reaction penalty in his secondary position. And I think Chipper Jones, of course, is the best third baseman. He's probably the only third baseman I would use because this is going to be my wild card selection. If I had to pick maybe somebody else from set 1, I would probably be using Munetaka Murakami. Or from set 2, of course, you could go with David Wright, the Kaiju player. But I am using the video game Captain Boost on my team right now. And if you are, you might have Bryce Harper ranked in the top 3 with the David Wright Captain Boost activated when he's on the bench. Bryce Harper could be potentially in the top 3 for outfielders, I believe, because he becomes one of the best cards in the entire game. He's almost maxed out completely. But I do not have Sammy Sosa. If I could pick a player to maybe use over Bryce Harper without the video game boost, it would be Sammy Sosa. And then maybe next up we have Larry Walker here. And then, of course, Mike Trout. Mike Trout is a really good option still. I think Larry Walker could potentially be maybe a little better than Mike Trout, just depending on whether you want a lefty or a righty. And at number 5, we have Trey Turner. I think Trey Turner is a top 5 outfielder as well. I would use this card in the infield just because I think having speed in the infield positions is pretty important this year. But also, you need some outfielders with speed as well. So if you have more of a budget team, that free Trey Turner option is a great outfielder. At number 4, we have Fernando Tatis. I think he is a really good option because he is a cover athlete, plays really well, especially on all-star difficulty, but on Hall of Fame, maybe not as good. At number 3, we have Ken Griffey Jr., and once again with the video game boost, this card is one of the most complete all-around players in the entire game. I believe he is a really good option, and could it even be better than this Hank Aaron card. But Hank Aaron, I mean, his attributes speak for himself. He is a push hitter, so his swing is maybe a little bit different. But at number 1, we have Mickey Mantle, the Commerce Comet. Without a doubt, one of the best cards in MLB The Show. Some people think he is the best. I think maybe Chipper Jones could have a little bit more value as an infielder, but also you need an outfielder to lock it down out there to take away extra base hits. Up next, we're going to be getting into the top DHs in Diamond Dynasty. I think at number 3, we have to put David Ortiz, Big Papi. I wouldn't put this card out there at first base. He's just going to give up too many bad reactions, too many base hits down the first base line. But if I were to, continue using Vladimir Guerrero, I think he is maybe a little bit better. He is at the number 2 spot in terms of DHs for me. And if I were to pick one other player ahead of Vladimir Guerrero, it would have to be Stan Musial at number 1. And then, of course, now I can show you kind of some of my team updates. But those are really the best players in Diamond Dynasty, at least in my opinion. I really think those are the best options. I don't necessarily have all those guys. I haven't necessarily tried out every single player. But those would be the guys that I would want to use on my team for quite some time now. This is going to be at least valid for about 30 to 45, 47 days or so before set 3 players are released. Until next time, I'm College Lefty, and peace out.